Welcome to the Advocacy and Outreach Pillar Strategic Plan Town Hall. I'm Jessica Haxey. I'm the president of ACTFL for 2021, and I am thrilled to have you here with us this evening for this extremely important topic and extremely important pillar of our strategic plan. We do have a handout for you. I'll leave this link here at the bottom throughout the first 10 slides of the presentation, so don't worry if you miss it. It's at tinyurl.com/ACTFL for outreach and advocacy. And like I said, if you have a cell phone available, that would be great. Go to pollev.com and put in Jessica H821, and those directions will show again. So we're going to start by finding out where everyone is. So if you can take a look at your cell phone, it should be showing you the map, and you can just put a little dot where you are right now as best you can. I think I just put mine in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But look, yep, we have plenty of East Coasters here this evening. That's fun. All right, so welcome. Looks like we have a lot of East Coasters, and then we have some people in the middle of the United States, and then we've got our West Coasters. It's great to have everyone here. So the next thing we'd like to know is, what do you do? So are you a K-12 educator, higher ed educator, K-12 student, undergraduate, student, graduate, consultant or company representative, nonprofit, organization representative, or something else? Let's see. So we've got about 50 in the 50 percentile of K-12 educators. Oh, it's wonderful to see. We also have our higher ed partners with us, and we have nonprofit organization representatives with us tonight as well. And more than anything, advocacy and outreach takes a village. So I'm so happy to see that we have people who have all different roles here this evening. I wish we had some, and I hope you'll share this with undergraduate students and graduate students who you know that are thinking of becoming educators or working generally in the field of world languages. So we have a number of wonderful facilitators and presenters here with you this evening. We have Amanda Seawald, who's the president of JNCL Nicholas. She's also the owner of Maracas Language Programs. We have Heidi Taylor Arnold, who's a Spanish professor in Missouri, and she is on our Advocacy and Outreach Committee. We have Marina Melita, who is also on our Advocacy and Outreach Committee for ACTFL, and she's at Marist College in New York. We have Mara Kobe, who is the president of NADSFL, the National Association of Supervisors of Foreign Languages, who are our partners in advocacy and outreach work. We have Katrina Griffin, who's the chair of ACTFL's Advocacy and Outreach Committee. And she's also a teacher as well. And we have Lydia Tang, who is the Associate Director of Programs for the Modern Language Association, another one of our partners in this work. We have Lisa Harris, the president of the National Council of State Supervisors for Languages, NACESFL, and another important partner in advocacy work for us. Kazumi Yamashita Iverson is a Japanese teacher in Waterbury, Connecticut, and she is on the Advocacy and Outreach Committee for ACTFL. Megan Whalen is Director of Public Outreach and Advocacy for the Texas Foreign Language Association. She's also on our Advocacy Committee. And Pam Benton, who is also on our Advocacy and Outreach Committee, a World Languages Supervisor from Florida, and she's also a member of the ACTFL board. So as you can see, we have a number of people here who can share a lot of expertise on this topic. I'd also like to welcome all of the ACTFL board members who are joining us this evening. These are your ACTFL board members currently, and if you ever want to see more information about us or see our pictures, we're all listed on the ACTFL website. I want to thank all of you for being here on a evening in the end of September, all of you, board members, facilitators, presenters, and especially all of you. And not only that, we have our amazing ACTFL staff who at night have left their families eating their dinners, I'm sure, and now here they are with us this evening. So Howie Berman, Executive Director. Howie, thank you so much for being here. And did you want to introduce the staff?
Yeah, sure. So as Jessica said, my name is Howie Berman. I'm the Executive Director of ACTFL. This is just a sliver of the staff that we have representing us tonight. Erin Welchel, who's our outreach manager, Jamie Kravanka, the wonderful Jamie Kravanka, my executive assistant who helps make sure that these meetings go off without a hitch. Monique Ennis, our Director of Human Resources. Celia Chamon Zamora, who's our Director of Professional Learning and Certification. Kate McCrae, who's our Professional Learning Manager. Meg Malone, our Director of Assessment and Research. Camelot Marshall, our Principal Assessment Manager. And Amanda Kwok, our Membership Assistant. There may be others here. If I missed you, I apologize, but like I said, this is just a sample of our wonderful staff at ACTFL, so thanks.
Thank you so much. And I think one of the interpreters might be waiting to get in, so I'm just going to give a call. If you just joined us and you need ASL interpretation services, please send a private chat to Jamie Kravanka, whose name is right here on the screen, and she'll make sure that the interpreter follows you to breakout rooms. But right now you should be able to see the interpreters on your screen. So our next question for you is, why did you come to tonight's town hall on the outreach and advocacy pillar? We're curious as to what sparked your interest in attending this evening. So if you're looking to find how you can respond, you can go to pollev.com on a cell phone and put in Jessica H 821 as the username when it asks you for username. Wonderful, to learn how to be a better ally to our underrepresented learners and teachers. Wonderful. Commitment to ACTFL community, yay. Interested in being a better advocate locally. Terrific, thank you. To support advocacy efforts. So it sounds like people are interested in doing advocacy themselves, as well as hearing about what ACTFL's doing for advocacy. So we'll talk about that, and we want to hear from you. How can we help you advocate in your own areas? Advocacy and outreach is key to continuing to bring awareness of the importance of world languages and cultures. Absolutely. And because it takes a village. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, good, we have more. And to help support ACTFL's outreach and advocacy mission. Well, thank you for that. I think we'll go to the, oh, I have to use better teacher wait time, don't I? Because they're still coming in. Supporting teachers to advocate for their programs. It's challenging to recruit teachers who can teach multiple disciplines in Chinese, absolutely. So it sounds like maybe you're working in a dual language program or an immersion program. Very difficult to find teachers in any language to work in those programs, to address the crisis in programs getting canceled. Absolutely. And to the person who wrote about recruiting teachers, I encourage you to go back and watch the town hall about teacher recruitment and retention that we did last month. We had a lot of interesting discussion during that town hall. How to advocate during times of financial challenges. Yes, right. And this is certainly one of those times in many school districts. I work on advocacy for French programs, for probably AATF, right? Wonderful. Well, it sounds like we have a terrific representation of interests tonight, and we're going to get to hear from each other in the breakout room. So this is not just going to be, we're going to talk at you for a few minutes here, for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we're going to have plenty of time in breakout rooms to share. Advocacy is key in promoting languages, teachers, kids, biliteracy, heritage language, and less commonly taught languages. Wonderful. Any of these are quotable. We should get these up on Pinterest with some nice background behind them. Terrific. Thank you so much. I'll move on, but when we go back and look at this, those of us running the webinar, we can still view your responses even afterward. So I'm going to take just a second to talk about the purpose of these town halls that we've been having. So the reason we wanted to have these was really to build community and collaborative relationships between ACTFL and its members and non-members. So as you know, non-members were invited to attend these as well, and of course members. And it's been a really good way for us to get to actually just talk one-on-one with you in the breakout rooms, especially even this year when we're not seeing each other in person as much. We wanted to involve members and non-members in reflecting on the pillars of a strategic plan. I'm not sure if you've been involved in strategic plan work in your districts, but part of the work is once you've set a strategic plan to reflect on whether you're meeting it and then adjust it and create new action plans for the next period of time. So that's you're helping us to do that reflection work. We also want to highlight initiatives that are already being undertaken at ACTFL. One of the things we've heard in these town halls is that when we tell you some of the things we're doing, some people are sort of surprised, like, wow, I didn't know ACTFL was doing those things. And so it's a way for us to sort of collate that information for you and have it all in one place. And also we want to answer questions that you might have about the profession or what ACTFL does. And this is an opportunity for you to do that as well. And this whole process is going to allow us to collect information that's going to inform board decisions and staff decisions about the next steps, either this year or in coming years. So I'm collating all of this for the end of the year, for the end of my presidency this year. And I'll be preparing a report that the board and the staff and even the field can look at to see what we've learned through these town halls. So far we've had, this is our 4th town hall. We've talked about equity, diversity, and inclusion, teacher recruitment and retention, and research. Tonight, we'll talk about the outreach and advocacy pillar. And then next month, we'll talk about professional development. So I hope that you'll join us for that. So these are our 5 pillars. And they really are the pillars that holds up the ACTFL organization. And they're not mutually exclusive. It's not that when we're doing outreach and advocacy, we're not thinking about equity and diversity. It's not that when we're doing outreach and advocacy, we're not thinking about teacher recruitment and retention. They all intertwine. We could have put this in sort of a circle as well, but I wanted to represent how these really are the pillars that sort of hold up all of the work that we do, but they absolutely weave in and out of each other at all times. And we really do want to keep in mind all of them when we're doing any single one of them. And you can, in multiple spots in your handout, it's linked right to even the title of it is linked right to the strategic plan if you want to read the whole thing. ACTFL's mission statement overall is providing vision, leadership, and support for quality teaching and learning of languages. And so underneath that this is the one of 5 pillars called outreach and advocacy. So as a little aside, you'll see that I'll even make the mistake of saying advocacy and outreach sometimes. So it actually on the strategic plan itself says outreach and advocacy, but I think we've tended to say advocacy and outreach. So whatever, it's the same thing, right? But you might notice I make that mistake. So under outreach and advocacy, we have sort of this vision for that pillar. Relevant stakeholders recognize or will recognize and value the importance of language learning for all students. So that's sort of the mission or the vision for this particular pillar. And the guiding questions as we go through this town hall about this pillar are, what are we already working on in this area of outreach and advocacy? What are your ideas and suggestions about our work? And what are your questions about our work? So I'd like you to keep those in mind as we go forward. So underneath that mission that we have of the sort of vision mission of this outreach and advocacy pillar, we have some sort of objectives. So one is to identify strategic stakeholders, right? So that would be things like parents, students, members of the business community, et cetera. Right? So we first identify who are the strategic stakeholders who can influence world language advocacy and education, increase the impact of engagement with the most relevant stakeholders. So undertake things that will increase the impact of how we're engaging with them. And then in general, increase the perceived value of language learning amongst the most relevant stakeholders, those same people. So how do we increase their perceived value, what they think, the fact that they think world language is important or don't think it's important. So I was trying to think about how to frame this discussion for us tonight. And I tried to think about what is your sphere, like as a teacher. So I was a Japanese teacher for many years in an urban district, and we were constantly having to defend the program. So I always thought of myself as in the middle of this sort of sphere. And then there were groups to whom I could advocate and influence. And some are very close to me, and some were further from me, but they were all important. So take a second to think about that, who these groups might be, and then I'll show you who I think of as these groups. But who can you advocate to in your day-to-day work, or even in doing more extended advocacy work? Who are you able to influence? So I think about it like this. I switched the you to be educators. So all of us who are educating people, students, learners directly, our immediate influence for advocacy is on, I'll add those. Our immediate influence for advocacy is on students and families, right? So by being great teachers, we're actually advocating to our students by showing our students why learning languages is important, showing them the careers they can have, showing them the amazing cultural experiences they can access. We can do every single day direct advocacy to students, and we can do direct advocacy to families by the way we interact with families, positive phone calls home before negative phone calls home, right? Developing relationships with families, all of that acts as advocacy toward families, in addition to the things we might think of as advocacy, like events and newsletters and websites and all that stuff, right? And then our next sort of sphere of influence, for me anyway, was the sort of school administrator, superintendent, board of ed, and then for higher ed, boards of trustees, admissions officers, that sphere, right? And to those people, you can, again, same thing, there's sort of the outward, what we think of as advocacy, sending them examples of student work, or having students perform at different meetings, or saying that students have won certain awards, or there's also just saying yes when they ask you to do things and becoming sort of indispensable in your school. And then also there's community members and local businesses there to whom you can reach out and show them what you're doing and invite them to events and invite them to come in and score your students when your students are doing various activities and things like that. And then the next layer is the state legislatures and governments and state boards of ed, that while they might seem distant from our day-to-day, and they certainly impact what's happening in our classrooms. And we've seen that even more now with Seal of Biliteracy and things like that on the positive side, but we've seen that for years with things like who's getting standardized tests, who's tested, who's getting special funding and things like that. So these absolutely have an impact on our day-to-day, and we can influence them as educators. And then finally, of course, there's the federal level, Congress and administration. And tonight we'll hear about things that ACTFL does to lobby at that level, and JNCL Nicholas does to lobby at that level, but also we can think about what can we do to advocate at that level. And I'm sure you're aware of the letter writing campaigns and things like that you can do to your own Congress people and to the administration. So there's two ways to think about this. We have our own sphere of influence, but then ACTFL also has a sphere of influence, and ACTFL's real job is to help you succeed in your sphere of influence and to also be exerting their own sphere of influence, right? So ACTFL has the ability to lobby directly to Congress. ACTFL has the ability to assist when you're working with state legislatures, school administrators, or even students and families, and we'll show you some of that work tonight. But what we want to know is, when you're thinking about the jobs you want to do in terms of advocacy, how can we help you? So I hope that frames the argument a little bit, or the discussion. That frames the discussion. So let's start sort of from the outside of that sphere, working in. We're going to start with the sort of congressional level, national level advocacy work. So I'm going to ask Amanda Seawald, the wonderful president of JNCL Nicholas, and Howie Berman, the executive director of ACTFL, to talk to you about our advocacy work our partnerships and advocacy work at this level.
Thank you so much, Jessica. It's a pleasure to be here. Howie, thanks for asking me to join you all tonight. As president of JNCL Nicholas, I want to just first, if you don't mind, just quickly say JNCL Nicholas is the Joint National Committee on Language, and we are your national partners, your coalition partners. We are the national federally focused advocacy group focused on making sure that all students have the opportunity to learn English and at least one other language. We've been around for 40 years doing this, and the collaboration that we have with ACTFL is quite dynamic, and I'm glad to be here with Howie to talk to you about it.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, ACTFL is a proud member and supporter of JNCL. We've been for since the beginning. And I also proudly serve on the JNCL Executive Committee. So I have been very involved and very proud to do so. As Jessica was saying, when we look at those sort of outside layers, the national and the state, we wanted to give you kind of a sense of those policy areas that we are addressing on a regular basis. And most of them, if not all of them, we do in consultation with JNCL. And you'll notice when you look at these, you'll see a lot of overlap with the strategic plan. So like Jessica said, it's not just about advocacy and outreach, it is also about all those other strategic plan pillars. So we'll kind of go through these. I don't want to spend too much time going through bit by bit, but for instance, if you look at college affordability and loan forgiveness, this is a big one. A lot of people outside of our world don't realize that world language is the 4th largest shortage area statistically, right? Even though it's not officially recognized as such federally. And so as a result, it doesn't get the same levels of loan forgiveness that teachers of math, science, and special education receive. So, ACTFL and JNCL, for instance, have really been working hard to fix that through the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act and other means. We've been looking at other ways to do it so that we don't have to necessarily wait for HEA. So that's just one example. Obviously, Amanda can talk a lot about the things we're doing to diversify and grow the teacher pipeline. I don't know, Amanda, if you want to jump in there.
I'll just jump in and say that, what we try to do is to look for ways that we can increase the opportunities for those who are speakers of other languages to become educators, looking for ways to not only diversify, but grow that pipeline, because we want to make sure that students who are in high school and achieve the seal of biliteracy, for example, have pathways to get to a teacher educator program beyond high school. And the way that we've been doing that is we've been working very hard with the different congressional offices to highlight this giant challenge. And what the way we did this last week was to have a congressional briefing where we shared with our America's Languages Caucus members, as well as many other congressional offices, the challenges that we're facing for world language, dual language, and bilingual education, to find educators to fill those roles, in qualified educators to meet the needs of our students. And that was a really important way for us to make sure that they understood what the challenges are and what the possibilities are. We also wanted to present some of the possible ideas that could be a model nationally. And, that is one of the things that we do every year when we focus on our legislative advocacy and our language advocacy as well.
Just to highlight, I love to highlight wins. And so one of the wins that I love to highlight in the area of supporting and promoting Indigenous languages, for instance. So those of you who came to the advocacy event that we did in 2019 in DC, one of the components of that agenda was the Esther Martinez Native Language Programs Reauthorization Act. And in fact, days after that event, it passed on a voice vote, and our advocacy was a big part of that. So
absolutely,
just one example. So let's move on to the next slide and look at the state issues. And here here are some of the state issues. And Amanda, if you want to hop in there.
I will, but Howie, I just want to also say, since we're talking about wins, we had a few more on the national level, especially even in the last week. If you don't mind, just really quickly going to say, in addition to Esther Martinez, the Native American Languages Resource Center has just passed and is moving on past the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, and the Durbin Feeling Act, both issues of Native American languages and making sure that we are providing opportunities to sustain and grow these languages. So in addition to that, certainly the things that we're doing at the state level, as Howie mentioned, are ways that we're making sure that we're planning and supporting all of the different issues that come up in the states and being aware of them. And I just want to quickly say that the seal of biliteracy, I know that Howie wants to talk a little bit about that, but I will just say that the seal of biliteracy is going to get a big boost when we see the BEST Act come forward, which we see has just moved out of the NDAA in the House and is going to the Senate. So watch for that as an equitable opportunity for all of your learners. Howie, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then you can see some of these other issues as well. We, obviously things like high school graduation requirements, making sure those are in place. Coding, we see constantly. We're dealing with that issue as well. But we'll move on in the interest of time. So thank you, thank you, Amanda.
Sure, of course, glad to be here.
And just so you know that on your handout, I linked some of the position statements that will help you address sort of the coding issue if that's something that's happening in your district. I'm going to ask Lydia now from MLA, from Modern Language Association, to talk with us about the work with MLA and ADFL. And if you want to learn more about those organizations, it's linked on your handout.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Howie, for including a voice from the MLA in this town hall. What I have observed as one of the staff liaisons to the MLA Committee on K-16 Alliances is that just because we teach the same languages doesn't necessarily mean that we speak the same language when it comes to advocating for our programs. For example, a high school Spanish teacher might be enthusiastic about the seal of biliteracy and will promote it to students and parents, including talking up the potential to receive college credit, whereas a Spanish professor at the regional college across town may not be all that familiar with this seal and might respond with concern, citing the further erosion of language requirements or the seal's potential impact on already declining enrollments. I thank the current and former members of the K-16 committee, among them Rita Oleksak and Becky Bray-Rankin, for organizing MLA convention sessions that brought together members of both communities to talk about the potential of the seal, voice concerns, share models of successful collaboration, and advocate for articulation and continuity across institutions. Several members of the ACTFL community participated in these conversations, including Howie and Jessica. And ACTFL, under the leadership of Howie Berman and Paul Sandrock, also invited the MLA to be part of the working group charged with updating the Seal of Biliteracy guidelines. In addition to the seal, both ACTFL and the MLA recognize the importance of identifying successful curricular models that we can share with our members and other stakeholders. This includes dual degree programs, innovative minors or certificate programs that make the case for the value of studying a language, even if the first major is not in a humanities discipline. And I can add a few examples in the chat later. I will add in closing that many of our members in higher ed are excited about the potential of the public humanities and community engaged work, and that as a result, we see more collaboration across educational communities on a local level. Some of these projects have been featured in the Innovation Room at the MLA Convention, where the ACTFL community has had a lively presence. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being there and sharing that. And it was a great pleasure to attend the MLA convention for the first time and have the opportunity to talk about the Seal of Biliteracy. I look forward to that work continuing. And I believe Howie's going to talk to you a little bit about other coalitions that we partner with for advocacy.
I am, if I could unmute myself. So we always say that advocacy is best done. It's a team game, right? You know, we've got to do this together, and especially in the last year, I think we've learned that even more so. So this is just a sampling of some of the coalitions that ACTFL has been a part of, and I think it really has helped strengthen our position in terms of promoting the case of language education, but it's also really helped build some relationships that I think will be long lasting and really help the profession for many years to come. So these are some of them. The Coalition for Teaching Quality, which really has been focusing on diversity in the teacher pipeline, teacher prep, professional development, and even things like the technology gap, which we have seen both for students and for educators. Coalition for International Education, I'd like to give a little shout out to Miriam Kazarian, who does Title VI and Fulbright Hayes. That's like her life, and that's what she does. And there was a big increase for those programs this year, thanks in part to a lot of her hard work. The English Learners Roundtable, which I represent ACTFL on, which we do in conjunction with OELA, the Office of English Language Acquisition through the Department of Ed. And then the America's Languages Working Group, which is a loosely affiliated organization of many representatives that really comes out of the AAAS report that many of you know of. And we can put a link to that in the chat. That the purpose is to highlight these replicable exemplars of great language programs across the U.S., but really especially among underrepresented groups. And then of course JNCL Nicholas again, because they really are doing a lot of all of this and much more, as we highlighted before. And I'll put in a plug for JNCL Language Advocacy Day, which is also linked in your handout. So thanks.
Thank you, Howie. And now I'm going to ask Celia Zamora from ACTFL, the Director of Professional Learning and Certifications, to talk to us about support for underrepresented communities.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. So ACTFL is extremely proud to support less commonly taught language learners and teachers, as well as heritage language communities in various ways. One of the ways that we do that, as has been mentioned a few times already, is providing two different avenues for those students in less commonly taught languages and heritage language communities to attain the SOBL. And combined in those two avenues, we help students in over 34 languages attain the seal of biliteracy. Apart from that, we also assist heritage language learners as well as heritage language teachers with providing resources, program evaluations, professional development, workshops, and certifications. And we are currently doing a lot of advocacy and outreach in heritage community schools, such as Saturday schools in Swahili and other languages, to really ensure that we help support those schools, as well as even try to get teachers coming from those schools for the teacher shortage. As Jessica said, everything really is interrelated. And as well as we have our Star Talk program that also assists in heritage language teachers, giving them the training, the certifications, and the assistance and resources to be able to get into the classroom. If you have any other questions, definitely reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to provide you with those resources and where to find them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe many of those are also linked on the handout as well. So now I'd like to invite our partners, NACESFL and NADSFL. We have Lisa Harris, the president of NACESFL, who's here with us tonight, and Mara Kobe, who's here, the president of NADSFL, to talk about the partnerships with ACTFL and the work we do together on advocacy and outreach.
So good evening, NADSFL. We are district supervisors, and so as partners with ACTFL's work tends to drive a lot of our work so that we can empower our membership to advocate for the best programs possible in their districts. We have published the Principles of Effective World Language Programs that is available for districts without world language supervisors or with world language supervisors to help keep them on pace. And we are happy participants in the AOD every year as part of our annual conference. Lisa?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be representing the National Council of State Supervisors for Languages. And as Jessica mentioned early on, we are a partner with ACTFL and NADSFL as we work together to provide a multi-layered support around efforts in advocacy and outreach. With our three organizations together, we try to reach the entire spectrum of professionals within the language learning community. where we focus from the classroom teacher through the level of district supervisors or curriculum writers up through our state supervisors who bring that state level perspective of policies and advocacy and outreach efforts that take place in all of the areas that were mentioned. Some of the specific areas where we have had some wonderful collaboration with ACTFL is in the area of creating the necessful ACTFL can-do statements, which many of you are familiar with as a way to use backwards design planning to chart a path for proficiency for students in our language classrooms. And that has been an ongoing initiative that we continue to review and update based on feedback from the field as we go through that circle from classroom to district to state and back again to review and reflect on how useful they are. Celia also mentioned that multi-state pathways to teaching. NACESFL and ACTFL have partnered in this effort with a sort of subset of our state supervisors in the states of North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia, reaching out to our heritage communities to try to increase teachers in that pipeline. And we've also accepted applicants to that program from around the state, not just in the 3 states that have formed the core group. So those are a few of the efforts, and we're really thrilled to continue this support with ACTFL in all of the outreach and advocacy.
Thank you so much. And this, as you can see, we're working our way sort of in the spheres, right? So we've talked about federal, we've talked about, and now this is sort of the state and then the local district supervisors level. And I thank you both for being here. And now we're going to talk a little bit about ACTFL's work. ACTFL has a number of committees working on different areas, mostly named for the strategic plan pillars, actually. And we have an advocacy and outreach committee that's comprised of Katrina Griffin, who is the chair. And then we have Pam Benton is a board member who's on it, and Brenda Gaver is a board member who's on it. And then we have a number of teachers and professors from around the country who are on it as well. And many of them are here with us this evening, helping out as facilitators. Katrina, can you tell us what your committee has been working on?
Sure. So you might not know this, but this is a rather new committee. Before, the committee was focusing on, there was no advocacy, there was outreach. And I think one of the things they were focusing on was EdTPA and teacher certification. But we felt like there was a need for an actual advocacy committee. So we've brought the two together, and we started right before COVID. So we have been working rather slowly to get things underway. We sent out a survey that some of you may have responded to get a better idea of what the needs are for our members and organizations. And based on that, so we could either start from the bottom, since we're starting fresh, or from the top. And what's happening is we're going to start from the top, and we're working with the Sheridan group to figure out and fine tune what our advocacy priorities are from a national perspective, from the ACTFL perspective. So we will be sending out another survey to get more information from you on where we think ACTFL should be spending its time with regards to legislation, what kinds of policies would we like to see on a national level. And another thing that we're doing is connecting with members. It says there on the slide to strengthen capacity. And what that means is we want to know who is already in touch with or has relationships with members of Congress or people who are influential, who can assist us in, once we figure out the exact direction we want to go in, helping achieve those policy goals. And so that's what we're working on. And these are the members of our committee, and many, if not all of them, are here this evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the committee members for their hard volunteer work all year and for being here this evening as well. And one of those committee members, who's also a board member, is Pam Benton, and she's going to talk with us about the position statements that ACTFL has put out over the years that might be beneficial in advocacy work.
Thanks, Jessica. ACTFL has, and you can get to these on the website by just Googling ACTFL position statements. That's the quickest and easy way for you to get to a page that really organizes them all very nicely, and you can click on the links and read through all of them. But when something is happening in society that is an issue that impacts world language educators, ACTFL will sometimes put together a position statement. And this is written by ACTFL staff with input from a lot of different stakeholders. Depending on the specific position statement, different people are consulted and different people are invited to give input. And this year, there have been several position statements issued, and without going into lots of detail, because all of them are very important and excellent, I encourage you to check the website and see what the position statements are that have already been put out there. And then perhaps as part of our discussion, you might think about other things that ACTFL would like to, or you would like to see ACTFL put out a position statement about.
Thanks so much, Pam. And next we come to the Leadership Initiative for Language Learning. And I'm going to ask Heidi Taylor-Arnold and Megan Whalen to come on and talk to us a little bit about this. They are both recipients of the Lil fellowships to attend, and they're going to talk to us about what this is and what they did with it and how it relates to advocacy.
Good evening, everybody. This is so great to be here. My name is Heidi Taylor-Arnold. I'm a Spanish teacher in St. Louis, Missouri, and also FLAM president-elect. And I am very pleased just to have the opportunity to share a little bit about LIL. As you can see in the mission statement, we're working to advocate for sustainable change. And that's one of the things that I have been learning since I started in 2015. I was part of the first group of LIL, and I have to say that I learned so much starting with the 6 core practices and how they were connected with what I was teaching in the classroom. So currently, we have 126 members, but the number is growing. So moving away in this part, I wanted to say that the tools that I received from LIL, for example, book study that we have to do with books, learning about leadership, it was something so grateful that if you're part of it, you have the opportunity to connect with others. And as a leader in an association, you know what is happening, and then you can support each other. One of the pieces that are really great for me, have been great for me in this part, is that LIL provided me with opportunities to network and to know what other members were doing in their associations. So we bond together and support when we have to defeat bills that were against world languages. So another piece that is very important for LIL is the action plan, because as the mission said, we're advocating for world languages. And in that way, you can see what is the change, what is the impact that you want to do through your association. And for example, right now, FLAM has 4 action plans through these several years that we have been working on. And we can see that we work with the Department of Education in Missouri. And also we're looking at our members, because we want to have diversity and inclusion, which is so important nowadays. So thank you so much. You have been so great just to share a little bit of our work in Missouri.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Megan, did you want to share some of your work?
Yes, thank you so much. So my name is Megan Whalen, and I teach Spanish and French in San Antonio, Texas. For me, LIL is a program that develops leadership, but it also trains us to be advocates for our programs. And advocacy has always been a passion of mine. And so my LIL plan was based around advocacy, my action plan. And so my initial action plan was to put out an advocacy day at the Texas Capitol, but with COVID, that didn't end up happening. I was a part of the cohort 3 in 2019. And the Texas legislature only meets on every other year. And so COVID changed up my plans, and I had to change it to setting up meetings with legislators virtually and things like that. Through the leadership and advocacy that Lil taught me, we did meet with the Associate Commissioner of the Texas Education Agency, and Texas still does not have a designated world languages supervisor, but now we have a group who's going to be meeting regularly with the world languages supervisor, who is really a fine arts person. So it was through Lil and their support of my advocacy action plan and the leadership that they taught me through the trainings that we had, that I was able to make some of this happen in Texas. And so I just really appreciated going through the Lil program and learning to be an advocate and a leader in my state.
Wonderful, thank you. And if anyone is interested, that is also linked on your handout if you'd be interested in becoming a Lil advocate in the future. And you might not think that this falls under advocacy, but actually there's quite a bit of advocacy that surrounds the ACTFL Teacher of the Year program. So I'm gonna ask Ying to come on for a moment. Look at this beautiful picture of her on the top left. You probably recognize her, and talk to you about advocacy via being Teacher of the Year. And of course, we've got Katrina here tonight with us as well. And there she is pictured over here.
Yeah, I think I want to follow the theme of Lilio. I'm also a Lilio. I'm from cohort 2. So happy to be here with my Lilian, Lilian friends. And I have to say, I never thought advocacy has anything to do with me, just a classroom teacher. And until I received the TOY award, and I got the chance to go to the Capitol Hill and to meet with legislators, Californian senators, congressmen, and in the picture you see this is the congressman representing my area. And I got the chance to talk about actually education, especially world language education. And I, got the connection with him, and we have been talking about inviting him to my classroom, really seeing how kids, learning the language and culture and using the language and culture as a tool to change the world. So I think really language advocacy is closely related to every single person. Even as a language classroom teacher, you can do a lot.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. Thank you so much for that. Yes, and you don't have to be the Teacher of the Year to do some of that work as well, right? Especially those of us who've been to that advocacy day that Amanda had put in the chat. We found that those meetings with our representatives were very helpful and built a lot of bridges that we didn't even know we could build. So I encourage you to look into that, to going to Language Advocacy Day. And I encourage you to apply for your local Teacher of the Year contests, I suppose, in your state organizations. So and now I'm going to ask Erin Welchel to come on from the ACTFL staff and talk about the amazing Lead with Languages webpage. And if you haven't visited it lately, I strongly encourage you to do so. There's so much more there than you might have remembered. It's wonderful. Erin?
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everybody. And I'm so excited to share with you some updates from Lead with Languages tonight. As you may know, the campaign was launched in March of 2017, but we've added a lot of resources since then. And the site is leadwithlanguages.org. We built it really with parents and students and other advocates in mind. So there's absolutely resources for you as educators, but it's more the group of people that you can share that with. And as you'll see here on the slide, we've got some of the benefits of learning languages, the top 10 reasons, for example, but also broken out by age group. We've got 19 pages dedicated to resources for a specific language, and you see those little tiles there that you can click on. And advocacy specific, we also have pages on starting a program, saving a program, expanding a program. It's this hub of free resources that you can delve into. We've also got an active campaign blog. And one of the things I love talking with students and professionals about is how much stronger our advocacy efforts are when we've got the data from reports and publications, but we can also pair that with some real life stories. So anytime you have students, especially in your classrooms, that you'd like to nominate for us to feature as well. I think the more we can build out those testimonials, absolutely the better. And I'll have you save the date for February because we have Lead with Languages Advocacy Month coming up. We'll have some really fun online challenges and interactive activities. And so hopefully everybody can raise their voices there as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Kazumi Yamashita-Iverson, who's on the Advocacy and Outreach Committee for ACTFL, to talk a little bit about some of the publications that you might want to use in your advocacy efforts.
ありがとう、ジェシカ先生. So this is ACTFL has produced a number of publications and offered research on their website, and these can be downloaded. Like you can download these documents and use it as your advocacy documents in your district. And this is an infographic from the Making Languages, our business report. And I use this report to when I advocate zero biliteracy in my district. And I also send this to my families because it's so eye-catching and they don't have to read anything, but they get the information. So those are great publications for advocacy. And then next page is these are the resources you can find on their on the ACTFL website. And again, these are great resources, and all these links are on your handout. You can find the links in the handout. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And now let's talk about how do we advocate toward right down to sort of the student level in encouraging them to become future educators. So Kate McCrae, are you here?
I'm here. Thanks, Jessica. So like Ying said earlier, teachers can advocate for language learning and teaching right in their own classrooms. So one of our initiatives I'm delighted to introduce is ACTFL's Educators Rising, which was designed for teachers to help students explore language teaching as a career. Currently, we have 10 ready-to-use modules in English on our learning management system, and they are free for any educator to download. Each module includes a PowerPoint presentation, a guide to help educators facilitate discussion, and a worksheet for students to record their thoughts and their reflections. We are also going to soon release a Spanish version of the modules, and in 2022, a French and Arabic version, so that these modules could also be infused into class time in the target language. So we're really excited to have this initiative in order to advocate for language teaching and help expand the teacher recruitment pipeline as well. And you'll see the link to access the English version of the modules in our session handout. Thank you.
Thank you. We're very excited to use those with our heritage speaker and native speaker classes in New Haven when those come out in Spanish and French and Arabic. Thank you. And now just a brief word about, we can't leave it unsaid, about the seal of biliteracy. And I'm sure everyone here tonight knows quite a bit about the seal of biliteracy, but I honestly think it's the greatest advocacy initiative I've seen in my career. It has the ability to impact so many things, from the benefits of seeing our kids be excited about it. Here's some kids in New Haven during our drive-through graduations last year, just arriving with so much pride. She's got her seal of biliteracy on the window here and her little thing that says, I'm bilingual, what's your superpower? And from this and from impacting families and students to what happens when principals see this and what happens when superintendents from other districts see this and say, hey, how do I get that? And you can only get that with extended sequences of learning or recognizing your heritage learners' language abilities and helping them to maintain those. And also it helps improve instruction when teachers get focused on proficiency because of the testing that they're using for the seal. So I think that if seal of biliteracy is not, and talking about it and implementing it at your school is not part of your advocacy toolbox, then that should be something that goes to the top of your list, and hopefully ACTFL can help with some of the resources that we have at our seal of biliteracy page. And finally, Howie, as a last resort, what do we also offer?
So yeah, so as a last resort, we do offer letters of support from ACTFL when programs are at the risk of being cut or completely funding is being cut, or programs are at risk of being cut. But as we always like to say, you should be advocating for programs when they are doing well, because that's when programs thrive. If you're doing this at the point where the program is already at risk of being cut, chances are it's too late. We will do our best. So we'll write letters to department heads, to superintendents, to boards of education. We've done it all. And in some cases it works. I will give credit where credit is due. Erin Welchel does a phenomenal job supporting me to write a lot of these letters. But sometimes it's like playing whack-a-mole, I'll be honest. And we want to be more proactive than reactive. But it is something that we do. Unfortunately, we're doing a lot more of it lately than I would care to admit. So.
Thank you, Howie. So that brings us to the big sort of question. Now that you've heard a lot of, what we've been working on, we want to know what more can ACTFL do to enhance our outreach and advocacy work and help you in the advocacy and outreach work that you want to do in your sphere of influence. So we are going to, we have a fairly small group tonight, but we are going to go into breakout rooms of about 5 people each. And then we'll come back afterward and debrief a little bit. So when these directions are on your handout, when you get into your breakout room, introduce yourselves. Please choose a note taker, and the note taker can open the Google Slide note-taking document and be typing right onto it. So when you get put in your breakout room, you'll see that you're going to a certain number. Just try to remember that number. If you're in breakout 1, breakout 2, breakout 3, and then that's the slide that you'll use. So breakout room 3 uses slide number 3. And then you'll discuss that guiding question. It's also on the handout, the guiding question about how can we enhance our outreach and advocacy. We'll send you a 3-minute warning. At that time, please try to decide your most pressing question or most cherished suggestion that you'd like us to discuss back here, whole group. And then when we get back, we will ask someone who's still logged into Poll Everywhere or who wants to re-log in and is willing to type your question for your group. So everyone doesn't have to do it. Just one person from your group has to be willing to type, and that's how we'll share our questions when we get back. And since we're a small group, we can also unmute and share questions. All right, and we'll bring you back when time's up. So I'm gonna ask Jamie now to go ahead. So make sure you have the handout open so that you can get to the Google Slide note-taking document, because it is linked in your handout on the last page there. And then Jamie's going to send you to breakout rooms and just say enter or join when the message pops up. We'll see you in about 10 minutes, 12 minutes.